It's 2026, and right now, businesses are approaching implementing AI completely backwards. They're buying random AI tools, experimenting with chatbots, and paying for software subscriptions when they have no idea what they're actually buying or paying for. And they start calling it innovation, right? But here's the truth. AI does not create business growth simply because you add a subscription or you start buying tools. Without strategy, implementation, and operational augmentation and alignment, AI becomes just another tool and just another way to spend precious money within the business. So if you're a business owner, operator, or an executive wondering, where do we even actually start with AI and how can we implement it today? Well, this video will walk you step by step through the real roadmap of how to start implementing AI like a smart business and using AI successfully within that business without wasting money, without wasting time, and risking your data, all within the same calendar year. What I see a lot with businesses these days is that they're just looking at AI like it's completely hype, right? They think they need to just implement as soon as possible with as many tools as possible, but what they lack is actual strategy, a roadmap to get to where they want to get to, which means that AI is actually working to save them money in the long run, obviously reducing a ton of manual effort and time within the business, and ultimately making the business more productive and move faster into the future. The second is how you can actually audit your business as it stands right now to implement and utilize AI the fastest and get the most return on your investment. The third is going to be implementation framework and where to actually start and build out a fully automated business using AI to help across a bunch of different departments. The fourth is getting super granular, which means telling you exactly where to start and where to finish and how you can scale without making any mistakes like a lot of businesses have made in the past in 2025 and how you can be the most successful in 2026. And then number 5, which is obviously one of the biggest concerns for any executive, which is data security and data governance, which can be extremely important when you're implementing a bunch of AI systems extremely fast. The sixth is systematize your structures and implement correctly without doing any sort of experiments along the way. I've worked with businesses in the past that just, want to go one direction and then they figure out, oh, there's a completely different solution and a better solution if we wouldn't have just experimented and we would have just stuck to a system and made it simple. And then number 7 is going to be the final roadmap for you to follow if you run a business yourself, if you're a small business, if you're a solo entrepreneur, or even in the enterprise industry of a business, which means you make over $50 million a year. All of the steps will be in this roadmap and will cover every single industry worldwide. So I'm going to break down this video into 7 parts, and they're all unique in the fact that they're going to explain different things about how you can win with AI in 2026. Whether you're a solo entrepreneur, a small business, or an enterprise, all these systems and all this roadmap will make sense no matter the size or the scope of your business. And to start it off, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the biggest problem that I saw with businesses implementing AI in 2025 and me running a consulting firm trying to fix their problems. So before I go super in depth on how you can win with AI as a business in 2026, what I want you to do right now is I want to give you something free. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to go to proverbaiconsulting.com/AI review. And in that page, you will find a detailed AI readiness review that you can take right now to figure out how you can implement your specific business with AI today. So if you want to figure out what certain businesses are spending up to $8,000 to figure out, you can now get it for free and very easy. All you have to do is fill out a quick 7-minute form and you'll have your own AI readiness review ready to rock so you can win with AI in 2026. All right, let's get back to the video. All right, so here's a little breakdown of what I see happening right now in 2026. Also, what I've buzz with a bunch of businesses that just fell into AI hype and didn't lead with any sort of strategy. They're just like, holy smokes, this world is moving so quickly. We just need to start implementing AI right now or we're gonna miss out. And what I saw initially was just, oh my gosh, we see this new AI tool on LinkedIn or YouTube, or we saw a YouTube video, or we saw a demo, and we need this tool. So we're just gonna buy it. We're gonna buy a year-long subscription. We're gonna spend thousands of dollars on it. We don't really know how it's gonna actually like move the needle for our business, but let's just buy it and see what happens. Or they spent a bunch of different money on building a chatbot. And I saw this with like a giant business that I recently had talked to. And they're just like, yeah, we got this super cool chatbot built. And in essence, like, it was cool, super hypey, on the website, didn't really do much. It was a super like cut and dry, like you ask this question and it answers in this response. Any other question that didn't fit into that perfect mold, it just answered like with super weird answers, or like basically said to call contact support or something. And it didn't move the needle. It just looked cool, right? And then like a SaaS subscription, which is kind of along the lines of a random tool, like it really didn't do much for the brand. Like, so these three things absolutely crushed businesses in 2026. And what did that lead to? Well, that led to leaking money. That led to just more money leaking. And ultimately, they didn't get any sort of turn off of it. And it's been a year plus, and they're still figuring out, hey, is this thing returning any money for us? Like, is this really the investment that we wanted to make? And then they're obviously moving to something like this, which is the right way to do it. Number one, we need to audit what's going on in our business and how AI is going to actually solve that. So the first thing I do when working with a business is figure out what's their low-hanging fruit, but also like, where are they spending the most time? Where are their employees rushed? Where are they not being productive? Where are they wasting time? Where are they doing a bunch of manual tasks that, you know, they're doing the work of a $15 an hour person and they're making a salary of $100+ an hour, something like that. So they're basically wasting all their precious time on things that could be either implemented with AI or automated in some way. And then we develop a workflow roadmap, which is super awesome to have, because now we know, okay, if this person, you know, adds or manipulates data in the CRM, okay, does that take them half a day to just get their leads intact and get everything organized in the CRM? Okay, perfect. So if that's taking half the day, what are they doing manually in that back end? Are they manually inserting data? Are they manually doing market research? Are they manually doing lead research? And how can we eliminate that based off of what their workflow looks like on a daily basis? And if it's happening every day, or if it's happening every week, every month, but it's on a synchronous scale or a chronological scale, then we can go to automations, which means that you can implement something like Claude Code to build out an automation that's just scripts in a folder that this person can use on a daily basis, if that's the daily task, to automate that piece. And then that salesperson that isn't doing any manual entry or isn't doing any lead research can now spend time on what they're actually paid to do and paid to move the needle in production. And then finally, we track on not only return on investment, so that means the money that they spend to get that AI system implemented, but also return on their investment in terms of time, because time is the number one thing that these businesses are looking for, especially at the granular employee level. An employee, right, can, let's say there's a 50 employee business, and if one employee gets back half their day, then they're doing double the amount of sales reach that they were doing prior. So then you get something like revenue growth that becomes exponential when you do it across a, like, let's say a 10-person sales team, right? You get half their day back out of 10 people. You're doubling what they're possibly doing in terms of actually moving the business and growing revenue for that business. Part two, which is talking about that all precious audit or piece of the roadmap that is super important to figure out where your business can save time, money, and also get an awesome return on investment through implementing AI tools or AI systems. Now, I consider this to be an audit. I think audits sound scary, So I think AI Readiness Review is probably a little bit better, which is what my business has done for a lot of different businesses in a lot of different industries, like professional services, retail, construction, manufacturing, etc. Now, to get started with AI and figure out if you are ready for it or not, or if that department is ready for it or not, is I want you to start extremely small. And I want you to think of something like, let's talk about marketing for a second. Marketing can be an extremely low-hanging fruit because there's not really a high level of complexity, but there's also a very low barrier of entry to create content or create systems that can move content faster or increase production. Plus, AI content and generating AI content helps businesses and departments understand, oh my gosh, AI is real and it is capable of a lot of cool things. So it's very easy for you to get team members on board when they can see it as a physical thing, right? Like AI, I think a lot of people get confused about AI because they don't see it in real life. It's not necessarily like a super tangible object, right? Like if you added a new person onto the team, like that person's tangible. You see them go to work every day. Well, AI is kind of scary, but also extremely digital, right? So it's not something tangible that a lot of people can see and make a figurative determination whether it's working or not right off the bat because they don't see it working on a day-to-day basis in real life with their eyes. So if you're starting with something, I would start with marketing. And when I talk about marketing, something like slow-moving content is something that can automate the process through AI, whether it is just an automation or a system that connects a person that's a graphic designer to a decision maker, and just making sure that the systems are connected and communicating properly, that, okay, this person has approved this piece of content to be pushed out. But when you start simple, like this, you're not working with a bunch of customer data like you would be in operations. Same thing with sales, you're not working with leads data, so you don't need to be super safe with your security. This is the best place to start, right here in marketing. So the first thing you do is identify friction, the operations of business. So if you have things in marketing that move slow, takes a long time to get approvals, takes a long time to edit, or something super manual like we're looking at content on a daily basis, or we're working on the schedule for writing emails. We're writing emails or newsletters on a daily basis. We're making social posts on a daily basis. This is a manual process that is chronological, right? And then an AI solution would be this AI content generation, like an AI content generation system or a tool that can produce a ton of output very fast. Then you can do more, right? You can 3, 4, 5x your output. And when you're testing and creating a bunch of content or a bunch of marketing or a bunch of social media posts, you can keep testing, you can keep iterating, and then you can get super good at what you can do, right? And super dialed in how your marketing team performs. Now, this isn't the most, high return on investment. Obviously, like something like sales is super big in return on investment, and operations is a high return on investment. This right here, you can make tangible. You can bring this to a decision maker. You can bring this to your team and say, hey, just look at what we've done in marketing. It hasn't been the biggest return on investment, but we know that if we implemented AI systems or automations in sales or operations or customer service or finance, this would be a higher return on investment, right? Because then we can just move faster, we can save costs, and we can just get more done and stop having high value players and high value leadership doing manual low jobs, which is department AI ecosystem. Now, if you've already decided that you're going to implement systems, you've done the audit or the review of the different business departments within your business, that you can audit and figure out what workflows work best and what workflows you can kind of take over and develop AI systems around. Well, here are how you want to space it out, because you don't want to just implement all of AI systems within every department, all at the same time. This can overwhelm people. This can cause issues where, you're spread too thin in terms of performing tasks and getting workflows completed. but also understanding everything at a granular level, let's start with one department at a time. And I think one of the best departments to start with is this marketing department. And the reason I say that is because there's so many different opportunities within marketing, like I talked about in the previous section, that allow you to test out systems without, creating a lot of risk involved with, sales risk involved with data, leadership risk and getting the wrong KPIs. Operations, you can struggle with this, but marketing is kind of like that, free space to be creative and obviously test things out. So I would obviously recommend starting in that department. And then if you're going from department to department throughout your business, you need to have somebody in each department that understands the functions of everybody within it. And that may be a leadership position, that may even be somebody at the bottom level that can give you key insights into what the manual workflow processes are on a daily basis. But in order to handle all these systems, you need to have one player that is like the leader, the star, the person that's gonna understand the technology, but also push the business closer and closer to growth, which AI systems do. So you need one star player within the mix that can target different departments at different times and start small and then work up, but be that leadership role to take on responsibilities that have to do with technological implementation and AI system implementation. So before you start anything, you need to target something that you can test easily and something that you can get a quick win from. So the first most important thing before you implement any AI system is identify the quick wins within the business that are going to return super good results for your employees, but also for your business. The second thing you need to identify and plan out is something that's going to get you a high return on investment from a small task. So what's going to get your highest return on investment for your employees' time, or maybe your time? Also identify, if you spend, this amount, what percentage can I get back, if I get it to a department rollout stage or an enterprise stage. Let's say you spend, $5,000, but in the long run, or maybe 4 or 5 months down the road, you're going to be able to return or save $100,000. These are things that you need to identify before you implement your first AI system. Right? The next most important thing that you need to identify is you need to be risk averse in deployments of your systems. So what I mean by that is, if you have a super high risk, maybe high reward AI automation or AI system that you can implement, if it breaks, if you have issues down the road, if it takes you a long time to get moving, you're stuck in stages of testing, that's high risk, right? Especially if you're super risk averse with security or data governance, you need to understand the risks involved with that and understand, hey, maybe I don't start in finance with optimizing for an agent that is a financial analyst that's going to be taking in specific financial data that can be harmful if it ever got leaked out of your business. Well, maybe we start in marketing as just like workflow compensation things, like connecting systems or making an approval system for creative, things like that. That's a very low risk deployment that you can test upon tons of times and not experience any sort of risk with leaking data that's going to be potentially risky, or doing anything that's going to risk employees, missing out on orders or missing out on customer services, things like that. And then the fourth, which might be the most important out of all of them, is how is your team going to adopt the new system? And this could come from leadership and how you display what you're doing with different team members. So for instance, let's say you're a marketing director, right? And you just dump a bunch of new systems or tools onto your team, and they're panicking because they don't know exactly how to use them. You're panicking because you're like, why aren't my employees using my new AI systems or tools? We're leaking money because they're not using them and they're not using them properly. Well, you need to get your team on board, number one, being implemented with AI systems, but also be okay with learning new skills or learning to use their time more wisely with these AI tools or AI systems that you're giving them. That you seriously need to take into consideration before you start to scale your AI system. So it should be phase one is just literally testing, right? Testing out how it works, auditing your workflows, and then measuring the results. Then phase 2, maybe once you test it on a very small level, you move it up to a full-on department level, where everyone in the marketing department's using an AI system or tool to better themselves. And then you just keep reiterating that measuring factor of measuring how it's doing. And then ultimately you can get it to an enterprise level to where maybe your whole company uses it and understands the tool or the system. So this moves us to part 5, which is AI governance and data security, which if you're an executive, this might be the scariest piece of any AI system or AI tool that you're going to be implementing in your business. And the reason for that is that data spread across a bunch of systems or a bunch of LLMs or large language models can be extremely detrimental to your business or your livelihood if it's not guardrailed. So you need different pieces of your data to be either given certain permissions, encrypted, be hosted locally, or any sort of database that is secure, that meets common compliance regulations that basically make it safe so that LLMs aren't spreading your data or saving your data on unverified locations or servers. So in this pyramid, I have an AI governance shield that I think you need to understand. Is your data encrypted, right? Is your data encrypted at rest or also in movement? So you need to understand things like SOC 2 compliance when you're holding data in a database and when you're keeping it locked down from any sort of LLMs. The next thing you need to understand is how are you going to host the data, or how are you going to host maybe an LLM? If you've ever used something like Claude Code, or if you ever used an LLM like ChatGPT or any of the Gemini models, those are cloud hosted servers. So that means that externally, there's data being held from your inputs that you give to these LLMs. Or do you locally host it, which means you're running it locally on your own machine, or something that you can actually look over security on? Do you have a database within your business? Is it secure? Is it self-hosted? Is it cloud hosted? These are all things and important things that AI systems need to work properly because data is so important. And then are you auditing everything that goes in and out of your AI system, right? So if you need to understand, is my data actually safe from this LLM? Or is it being leaked? Audit logs will help you understand how your data is flowing in and out of the AI systems that you're utilizing. And then compliance. Are you a business that requires HIPAA compliance or even SOC 2 compliance? You need to understand compliance you as a business fall under and how you can use data safely and successfully within an AI system. But here's the thing, if any of your AI systems are working with client data, financial data, or any other data that is sensitive to your business and can be detrimental if it ever got leaked, you should not build an AI system that is used on an operational level until it's ready to handle this kind of data and handle it safely. All right, now we are on part 6, which is experiments versus systems. And the biggest businesses all run on systems. And you can tell that smart businesses that are winning with AI in 2026 implement systems instead of losing businesses which just experiment with AI and try to get the best option through just wasting money on tools and systems that they may never use again. But it's worth a try, right? Wrong. So if you want to implement systems effectively and systematically that will actually be beneficial for your business in terms of growing revenue and saving money on costs, you want to think of it as integrating systems within your business and network. So the first thing you want to align with is SOP alignment. So every business has SOPs or systems of operation, or systems plans in place that tell you exactly how to do something or how to run something. And that shouldn't change with anything with AI. You should still have that mindset in place when, number one, you're auditing or reviewing what your employees do on a daily basis in terms of a workflow, and understanding how that SOP or how that system can now be translated into an AI system. So the next is department integration. And when we talk about department integration, we want to think about how it relates to the department from the bottom level of an entry-level position to the top level of, let's say, a marketing director, if we're still on that topic of marketing, right? And I see it all the time. There are people within a business that make $100 an hour salary, but are still doing $15 an hour tasks. Like they've never risen up in the company. They've just constantly been doing the same tasks over and over again. And that's where the true meat of getting stuff done in AI automation systems can benefit your team members or your department members. And as a leadership role, you need to understand this and equate how an AI system can work in your department and integrate effectively. All right, the third thing that we're going to talk about is the KPI tracking of an AI system. And this is super important if you want to understand your return on investment. Also understand if there's any sort of cost or time savings associated with the system that you have just implemented. Where a lot of companies go wrong is they don't actually track this effectively or successfully. If you can understand what and how much time is being wasted throughout the day in an employee's job, you can figuratively understand that if you implement an AI system that saved them 2 hours a day, right? That's a true return on investment in time, because now you're not paying somebody to just do a basic level task or a manual task. You are paying them to do what you hired them to do. Next one, and this is probably the most important piece of building a strong AI system. And you've seen it, all the horror stories, right? You've seen people and businesses that have basically revamped a whole department by integrating something like AI agents or AI systems, and it works for like 2 or 3 months, then they just revert going back to hiring a full-on staff in that department once again, and their AI basically failed them. Well, this happens all the time, and I constantly go back to this. AI is not going to replace a team. It's not going to replace individuals. It will help amplify what that individual can do, right? And you will always need human interaction, because these things go off the rails all the time. And this is where the horror stories come from, right? They've either made no approval systems, they've made no human touch points to where you can see what the AI has been producing and still guardrail it, or you just didn't do enough testing in the first place to get the AI systems in the right spot to get you the right goal, reach your goals, or get you to the right positions. And then the final one, which is super important too, but it's continuous optimization of the AI system. Businesses feel like, okay, if we spent this much on an AI system, it's a set it and forget it tool. We never have to interact with it again. It's going to fulfill our dreams. It's going to do everything we want it to. And it's just good forever. Like, it's going to last the business tens, decades of years, right? There are AI systems and models and generative AI, different things that can produce awesome outputs that are changing on a daily basis. There's a new AI model coming out every single day from closed and open source LLMs. And you need to recognize that this is an ever-changing world. There's no reason why you should stay the same. If everything else is getting better, faster, more accurate, why are you still using a model that is outdated, right? That's just one example. But constantly making it better, it's a serious win, especially if it's increasing your return on investment. All right, this brings us to the final piece of the video that is the most important for you to understand at the big scale of everything going on, from once you actually do the review and the audit of your workflows within your business internally, to then finally optimizing on the AI systems that you've built and are proud of and have actually returned on their investment. They've gotten your team or you as an individual time back, and you're saving a lot of money because you're producing tons more output with less touch points or less human interaction or just less spend, right? So this is the framework that I use for every business that I work with, but it's 7 phases. It's the business roadmap that I use, and it's pretty easy to understand. So first, you're going to audit. You're going to understand where your touch points are, where your workflows are, and you're going to start small. Then you're going to identify the bottlenecks of those processes and the friction points by which AI can actually optimize that process. 3 is testing. There's always going to be testing involved with any system you implement. AI is no different. You need to understand that testing is a large piece of it to get the pieces right from the jump, instead of figuring out it doesn't work 3 or 4 months down the road when you've already invested a bunch of time, money, and effort into it. Then 4 is you got to validate and track key parameters so you can understand and track your return on your investment, whether that be the return on investment of time or the return on investment of actual cash within your business. 5 is the scariest part, which is the governance aspect. If your pieces can't be trusted and your data is compromised through LLMs or some other system that's feeding pieces of the business without any guardrails, you need to understand exactly what those pieces are, how to keep them secure, and what you need to do consistently to make sure your data is not leaked. And 6 is scale it. Once you start small, you've figured out the system works, you understand and track the KPIs, governance you need for building out the systems even larger, you can spread your wings and start scaling to either different departments or just growing it into a department and then hopefully an enterprise level later on. And then 7 is just making it better over time. Because AI is an ever-changing environment, you need to understand if you change this now, this isn't going to stay like this forever, right? This model might get you 80% accuracy, 4 or 5 months down the road, you may see a model that gets you close to 95, even 100% accuracy. You don't know. It's just how the system works, and as large language models keep training on more and more data points, they get better and better at predicting the next outcome. Knowing this roadmap, are you ready for AI, and is your system ready for AI so that you can start getting into AI the right way instead of messing around and falling into AI hype? Well, if you like this information, if you like this entertainment, please like, subscribe, and follow my channel for more insights about AI and also how to implement and build your own systems within your business. This is JR Automations. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.